The key word is oppressive.
Yeah.
The show and tell isn't necessarily at the point where it's oppressive. The survival Vengevine deck was oppressive. I mean, it forced out other decks. Like, you couldn't play certain decks because of that deck existing. That deck forced out the other decks from the top 8 because it took up like 6, 7, 8 slots of every single top 8. That's how dominating it was. We don't see show and tell quite at that level, but it is close enough that it should be considered, or at least talked about a little.
So we move into this game. Marshall on your right, Anderson on your left. You do see Anderson is up a game, but Marshall looks to be leading this game at 19 life versus Anderson's 8. It'll be interesting to see what her hands here is. Marshall's even untapping right now, too, with a 6-7 Tarmogoyf. So I think we're cutting into a favorable game here for Chris Marshall and his fans at home.
Yep, Todd, it does look like he might have a removal spell in his hand and a Dark Confidant in play. Is that a removal spell?
It's a Path to Exile that's in his hand. You're going to see Creeping Tar Pit get fired up. And now Todd actually has a choice to make here as he's going to activate that Polluted Delta. He's going to take one and move on down to 8. About what do I Path to Exile here? You can make an argument for both. There's 6-7 coming at you. There's also a 3-2 unblockable, which puts a lot of stress on you to draw a Wasteland. As you know, Jace the Mind Sculptor can't really save you from that Creeping Tar Pit. So what to kill?
Yeah, I mean, you have 3 Wastelands versus 3 Jace the Mind Sculptors. As sort of cards that answer one but not the other. So assuming that none of those have been used, it's actually a pretty even thing there. But given the option, when it's even, you want to preserve your life total a little more, if possible, because of the Dark Confidant in play. You don't want to just die to that. And also, you can close the door on like a Death Right activation becoming lethal if you do answer it. And there is a Swords and Plowshares off the top.
And that's going to help solve a problem here. So Swords and Plowshares along with the Swamp, the draws for Todd. He's going to come across with Dark Confidant. Keep in mind, Anderson at 4 life. Marshall at 17 right now. And Marshall was able to take out Batterskull for good with that Thoughtseize. So Creeping Tar Pit is the only threat right now. But it's just hanging out, saying, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to activate. I'm not a guy.
Yeah.
Swords of Plowshares, the draw here for Marshall. And you see a Vendilion Click in his hand as well. So he's just going to pass the turn back. Gonna sit steady here with Vendilion Click.
Pretty aggressive line here, actually. He's got 2 Swords to Plowshares in hand, not hitting the Dark Confidant because he wants the extra damage from it. But, the stream of cards that it provides can also be quite scary. So he is taking the more aggressive line here, which is reasonable with the Vendilion Click and the follow-up of the Creeping Tar Pit activation.
Well, Jay, you know what they say, greatness at any cost, but it works both ways.
Yes. Yes. And we see another Stoneforge Mystic coming down. Chris Marshall lets that one resolve. I'm pretty sure that both equipments are gone.
Yeah, Todd with no target. You see the Umazawashite and the Batterskull in the graveyard. Here's a Vendilion Click on Anderson's end step. I think we know who that's going to be targeting, and he says, you.
Yep. And you pretty much have to respond here, get the Vendilion Click, and, well, he lets it resolve?
What are we hoping to peel here?
Well, I mean, you have the Caracas to sort of contain the Vendilion Click, so maybe he's hoping to draw with the redraw to get a little deeper into his deck, find something like a Wasteland for the Creeping Tar Pit.
And maybe try to trap him.
Yeah.
If he draws a Snapcaster Mage or, another Swords or Path, and this looks a lot worse.
Yeah.
Now you're going to see Caracas is going to bounce that. Anderson's going to move down to 1 from the Creeping Tar Pit. And, yes, greatness at any cost indeed.
1 is a scary life total to be at with Dark Confidant in play. And it looks like Chris Marshall actually is just going to Vendilion Click again right away.
Just looks like he's sacrificing right now.
Okay.
Saving a little bit of time.
And dead.
Bobby shows it Bobby. Greatness at any cost. Chris Marshall, you're a winner, my friend. So we're going to go on to game number 3 here. And as we do analyze what is basically a Deathblade mirror, there are some differences that we did analyze at the top. We'll go over them a bit again here. Anderson's going to be on the play for game 3. So we're going to take a look at his deck and his sideboard first. Again, traditional deck in the Brian Braun, the Win School of Thought. Lauren Nolan winning SCG Nashville with this 2 weeks ago. The sideboard here for Anderson, he has 1 Disenchant, 3 Geist of St. Traff, 2 Supreme Verdicts, 2 Meddling Mages, 2 Surgical Extractions, 1 Vindicate, 1 Path to Exile, 1 Forceful, and 2 copies of Thoughtseize to go along with his 2 in his main deck. So if you'd like, he can board up to 6 discard spells, but having that many discard spells is a lot to have after sideboard. So one thing that Todd did say in between the final round of the Swiss and the top 8 is that he was a very, very big fan of Geist of St. Traff. Said he wishes he had some main deck because he was boarding you in every matchup as they are a quick way to end games against combo decks. After you kind of shred their hand, it gives you a nice way to close out. But it having Hexproof, as we're pretty familiar with now from playing Magic, is the real problem for a lot of people. It being a fast clock and unkillable via Swords of Plowshares and Path to Exile make it hell to deal with.
Yeah, and if you look at Chris Marshall's deck list, he actually does have access to 2 Liliana of the Veil as one of the cleaner answers to Geist the Saint Draft, but 2 Lilianas versus 3 Geists, not necessarily the best. Not to mention that if you just have the 2-drop beforehand, like you can protect against an Edict effect more than you can protect against a Geist.
Sure.
You basically have to have a blocker, one that you're willing to trade away. If Todd has a Caracas, he can protect it. Plus, there's just a lot of removal sort of getting in the way there. So that's going to be one sort of sub-game to be looking at. And looking at Chris Marshall's sideboard, he's got a couple Abrupt Decays, definitely bringing those in. I mean, Dark Confidant, one of the more important cards. And it does kill Stoneforge Mystic before it puts a Battery Skull into play, or the Germ after. It kills the Umezawa's Jite once it's in play. It kills the Deathrite Shamans, which can actually be pretty relevant, and a couple of other small applications, Snapcaster Mage or Vendilion Click.
Yeah, some minor ones.
Yep. There. And Caracas might be coming in just for, to Legend Rule Todds, because Todds are a little better. And the extra mana source isn't too bad.
Might as well do it while you can, since you can't do it in a month from now.
Yep.
Get those legend rulings in while you still can.
And on that note, Jace Bellerin in Chris Marshall's sideboard for basically the same reason, to pseudo legend rule, to planeswalker rule the Jace the Mind Sculptors to go up to 5 quote Jaces, whereas Todd only has access to 3 main and no more on the board. So 5 versus 3 in the Jace count. Gotta give Marshall some extra, some extra marks there. And some more discard, Disenchant potentially coming in for the equipment. Surgical Extraction, not that great. Plague doesn't really do anything. And Umezawa's GTA of his own, once again, Legend Rule potential there. So, these matchups, it's like, how much discard do you really want? Do you want Force of Wills? Usually not, but sometimes they're good if the matchup is more dependent on Jace versus, Dark Confidants. What type of game are we going to be playing here? What sort of disruption configuration do I want? And there's a lot of leveling involved there as well.
And there's a lot of back and forth in this matchup. That's why we made this our backup match, because we had a feeling we were going to be able to cut over to it. It's not a quick one.
No.
That's for sure.
Absolutely not. And we saw there that it was, we cut in pretty late, and there was obviously a resource advantage tipping quite heavily in Chris Marshall's favor, both in life total and cards. But we did see the standoff of the key difference between the two builds. A lot of the numbers are a little different. Those are more cosmetic, kind of marginal differences where you can gain a slight advantage either way. The key difference is Chris Marshall is playing Tarmogoyfs, where Todd Anderson is playing Stoneforge Mystic and equipment. And we saw a giant 6/7 Tarmogoyf just tear through Squires in the late game. Once the Batter Skull got Thought Seized and the Umezawa's GTA was long dead at that point, it was literally Squires against 6/7 Goyfs. It seemed a bit of a mismatch.
All right, so Anderson, hand on his head, hand on his mohawk. He is going to keep. All right, so here's Deathrite Shaman off of a Flood Strand. Going to search for an Underground Sea. So this is the big innovation, right? Is that Esper Stoneblade made some room for some Deathrite Shaman so that it can accelerate and affect the graveyard and just have some more interaction. And now you got a Deathrite Shaman here from Chris Marshall. The player who plays Deathrite Shaman first, typically, they get this insane interaction.
Yeah, they get the first activation, and then once neither player activate, or one player doesn't activate for a turn, then you're at this weird standoff because you can, target whatever they target in response. But having it first does mean that you can theoretically accelerate into your 3-drop or, a cantrip and a 2. But as we see, a Brainstorm looking for a land and a miss.
Yeah, so Todd, the reason that you saw the deliberation is basically Todd looked at his hand, he sees a turn 2 Geist the Saint Draft available, and that's so hard for Chris Marshall to beat. Borderline impossible, hexproof, 6 damage, all that good stuff. And Todd thinking to himself, all right, if I draw the land on turn 2, bingo, I'm in business. Okay?
Yeah.
But additionally, it's like, I have a Brainstorm backup, and now I think he might have to, so he's going to Swords that, take care of it, and just pass the turn back. So he's stuck on 1.
Yep.
And now here's a Thoughtseize from Marshall, and Todd showed you. All right, I got two Stoneforge Mystics. I got a Snapcaster, a Thoughtseize, and a Brainstorm. This is my best Jersey accent, by the way. I'm not really very good at this. So which card do you want to take, huh?
I got some goods. I got some goods. No manners, but I got the goods.
So yours is better than
It's
mine.
not bad. I hang out with Gerard a lot.
Not fair. Touche. So Marshall's going to take down the information here. He's going to write the cards down because this is pretty important for him to want to figure out how he wants to sequence this game. He sees that again. Todd does not have a second land. Doesn't look like Marshall's that land heavy either. I can't get a great look.
He's got like one more land, and I think it's just like a tundra.
So I think maybe both these players may be relying on the old Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, they were leaning on it a little. I mean, actually, while you were ranting about how the Deathrite interaction works, I was actually going to say one of the big innovations is actually fixing. These mana bases are so sort of stretched. Do see,
I love this. They both kept one lander. This is awesome.
That is awesome. That was not a tundra I saw. It was a white bordered disenchant, and we see an anime Jace Bellerin. A Jace the Mind Sculptor, a pair of Tarmogoyfs, an Abrupt Decay, and the aforementioned Disenchant. Things are about to get weird, Seti.
Yeah, this is going to be a delight. This is how Magic was meant to be played. Let's rip him off the top. We know Todd's missing next turn. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens for Chris Marshall's side. Chris Marshall's, his land is in blue. So he can't even draw Brainstorm to kind of get out of this. And so Todd has to take Abrupt Decay, a card he probably doesn't even want to take here, but he can't let the Deathrite Shaman die.
Right. And if Chris Marshall draws a fetch land, then at least Todd gets one more mana off of his Deathrite. But if Marshall just draws an untapped land and it plays 2 Tarmogoyfs, then it's going to be real.
There's the Brainstorm.
Blue source.
I'm from the future.
This is funny. And so now Todd, since his Brainstorm was taken, it was Brainstorm locked, which means that you don't have a way to shuffle away the top of your deck, but you also don't have anything good there. So you're forced to draw some pretty bad cards, and that is the situation that we're at here. Not a land, but a Thoughtseize. If you're not going to draw a land, at least you want to draw something you can cast.
He has to take Geist there because if Todd draws a fetch land, the game literally ends on the spot.
Yep.
Todd draws a card. It's a wasteland.
This is weird.
Yeah, that's not so bad. That's actually that's boring. Todd slams wasteland into play. Going to eat that. Give me some mana. Let me go get a Batter Skull here. Had it, as they say. Gonna get myself that 4/4 lifelinking equipment. And Chris draws not a land.
A 4-drop.
Yeah, he draws a Jace, and Marshall just shrugged his shoulders. Said, "Yep, I kept a risky one like you did. Mine was a lot more risky than yours."
And not only was it a land, but it was a waste to kill Marshall's, and that makes Deathrite able to make 2 mana in the next 2 turns, which is just enough to play Stoneforge and activate Stoneforge. Woo! And there's a fetch land. So, with another one, he can theoretically disenchant the Batter Skull, maybe get back in it. It is a fetch land, so it turns on the Deathrite for another turn.
Yep.
This is a weird game, Cedric.
So Polluted Delta just passed, as Todd's going to draw a card. He draws his own fetch land. All right.
This might be it.
Yeah, Anderson getting back in the driver's seat now.
I mean, you slammed Geist here, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine he does anything else. You want to get this game over with, as you're going to see an activation. Yeah, you slam that 2/2. You get the Geist thing trapped out there, the old hexproof beater. Now he's got a 4/4. He has virtually a 6/6 with the 4/4 Angel and the 2/2 hexproof Geist. And, the damage from Deathrite Shaman activation and the Black Half and Stoneforge Mystic getting in. I don't think that Marshall's going to be able to catch up. He's got 1 land. He's facing a ton of damage. He's going to sacrifice Polluted Delta, search out whatever land he can. But again, as you said earlier, these decks, they're 4 colors.
Yeah.
So it's not like you can sack a fetch land. It's like, I can cast everything I want to. You have to draw a couple more lands to be able to do that now.
So now he's got a Brainstorm, End Step, and he's got to find balance.
Balance is what we're looking for. 2 and 3. Jason Mind Sculptor, one of those cards. Looks like, he has a couple of lands, and he's going to extend the hand. So Todd Anderson is moving on to the semifinals.
Both players keeping 7-card one-landers, kind of leaning on Deathrite, but Todd was on the play, so he got to use his first for mana. And he had the Brainstorm, so he got to cast that first. He missed, but was able to plow Chris Marshall's Deathrite, and Chris Marshall, not only did he not have a Brainstorm, but he didn't even have a blue, so when he did draw the Brainstorm, he couldn't even cast it. He did have the Thoughtseize to sort of Brainstorm lock Todd off of his own first Brainstorm that bricked, and then he drew Wasteland and sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah. So again, a nice tournament for Chris Marshall. He bounced back from that loss against Chris Picula at X&O, was able to win and then draw into the top 8. So, again, he made it in on Breaker. So, congratulations to him for a fantastic weekend. But Todd Anderson, your 1 seed, he's moving on. He's going to get to keep playing first.
Yeah.
So that's like a pretty big deal. But we're going to find out our match results here of Ryan Frainer and James Pogue, Blue Red Delver versus Sneak and Show, assuming that one's just about finished. And then Keith Blackwell versus Frank Scarron. You got Omnitel versus Charlotte's Bug. Again, we know that Blackwell's up a game with that, so we're going to see if we're going to get any of those matches moving forward. But Deathblade, this deck's kind of all the rage now.
I mean, I hate to say it, especially to you, but it might be time to break out the goblins.
Go on.
The Wasteport Vial deck has to be the strongest strategy against this 4-color, sort of. I mean, it's powerful cards, but they're just creatures, You can Tarfire them, you can Incinerate them.
I'm listening.
Go on. I really hate doing this.
Me too.
We don't need to make Cedric Phillips's head any bigger. But I mean, those strategies are what keep people in check. They keep people from being able to do these ridiculous mana bases where they just cast all of the best cards in the format. Those, I don't want to say Merfolk because that deck's pretty poopy. Yeah. But those Merfolky, Goblinsy, I mean, Rug Delver exists that kind of plays that role. The Blue Red Delver deck with like Lavamancers. Remember that deck?
Price of Progress and stuff like that.
Yeah. Those decks are really good. Even Burn with Price of Progress is pretty good. It's anything to punish these horrible mana bases. But if you let these mana bases or these creatures develop their mana bases, the cards that they're casting are unbelievable. Like every single card is individually unbeatable.
Yeah.
So like you have to attack the mana. Right?
I mean, the one thing that like Goblins has in favor of it too is like they get to mess with the mana base with Wasteland and Port. That's the big thing. But also it has like a lot of removal, and their creatures in the Esper Deathblade deck are actually like, pretty feeble.
Yes.
It's like 2/1 Dark Confidant, 1/2 Stoneforge, 1/2 Deathrite Shaman, Vendilion Click has 1 toughness, like Snapcaster Mage has 1 toughness. So like a card that like shouldn't even be good against him that's like pretty good is like Goblin Sharpshooter.
Yeah.
Like you can just like go gunning guys down. They really can't do very much about it. They don't have, as you mentioned, a big card like Tarmogoyf. Right. And it's like, oh, this is really tough for Goblins to deal with because it's so huge. Their biggest guy is Batterskull, and Goblins has access to artifact removal because of Batterskull.
Yes.
So I agree with you. Like it's a pretty good matchup. I think it's favorable. But again, like if they want to fix that matchup and just shut me up pretty easly, then they just go reach for their engineered plagues, and I just want to cry.
Yeah,
and there's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah,
so.
but you need those sort of what's the word I'm looking for? To keep things in check. You need those decks to exist.
Yes,
to keep things in check.
Of course.
Like I don't think that Goblins is going to be a big metagame player for months to come or whatever, but we need a couple tournaments where it puts up like a top 8 and then a win. And so the people are like, all right, I guess I can't do this anymore. I'll go back to the 3-color.
Yeah, with some basics and stuff.
Yeah.
Quick update for you guys. Ryan Frainer, Blue Red Delver, takes down Sneak and Show. We thought that matchup would be kind of close, but we thought maybe the loss of Tarmogoyf and Nimble Mongoose to have a much more 1-drops would maybe change things, but it looks like he had a little bit more permission than expected. Maybe the Sneak and Show player in James Pogue did some mulliganing and all that stuff. We're not entirely sure. But Ryan Frainer, Blue Red Delver, your mission, assuming you choose to accept it,
I assume he will. I mean, he wants to win.
Is to try to take down Todd Anderson.
He's just like, I'm out of here.
This deck box will self-explode in 3, 2. So Blue Red Delver. Again, we don't really normally see that version of Delver. We typically see Rug Delver. So this will be an interesting challenge. Todd talking about how much he loved Geist Saint Traft in his deck. Frainer has the main deck.
Yeah.
And they're pretty hard for Anderson's deck to actually be able to deal with, assuming he can clear the path for them. And we take a look at Frainer's deck list. I'm going to go through some of the stuff here. Let's see what kind of way he has to clear lightning bolts and stuff like that.
When somebody gets eliminated, we should just rip up his deck list, throw it up.
We can do what they do on Inside the NBA, make them gone fishing.
That's pretty good. I was gonna say we could put half the coconut over their torch, be like, you are off the island.
Oh yes, is that a Survivor reference?
Yeah.
See, I don't watch that.
That one's for Tim Ayton.
I don't watch that one very much. Removal, Grimlock Mancer, 3 copies of that. Actually really good against Todd's deck. Swords of Plowshares, 4 of those, 4 lightning bolts. So that's a move you can clear the path with. That's actually pretty good. Whereas like a Rug Delver deck normally has like Spell Pierce and stuff like that. This deck actually has some hard removal to get the Geist of St. Trap through, which he has 3 copies of. So he's gonna be able to actually contain Todd's creatures pretty well. Todd tries to play a Dark Confidant, he tries to play Deathrite Shaman, tries to play a Stoneforge Mystic, relies on those again feeble creatures to get the job done. You're looking at a lot of removal here, and the big one is the reusable 1 Ingram Lavamancer. It forces Todd to basically have a Swords of Plowshares right now.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that I was saying is the removal is so good against their creatures. Not only to get the Geist through, but because a lot of the power of the deck is drawn from the creatures. Having Dark Confidant draw you cards over the course of many turns, Stoneforge Mystic finding you the Batter Skull and cheating it into play uncounterably, and the Deathrite accelerating you and having the late game utility. The creatures themselves are what is good. Yep. So if you can actually attack the creatures, you might be able to make something happen.
I agree, and I definitely think that's a strategy there.